So you're familiar, we've been emailing a little back and forth of the document that was leaked by the CCP, Chinese Minister Wei Feng. Basically, it's about their strategy to get rid of the people here on America using biological genetic weapons to get rid of the people here in America and then recolonize America with the Chinese. Are you familiar with that article or with that to speech?
Oh, yeah, I read it.
Okay,
I read it, and yeah, so quite long actually, and yeah, and they're doing that. I mean, they're executing the mission right now.
So, to the people here in Utah, that especially where our governor, who is very much involved with World Economic Forum and pushing smart cities, supposedly we are actually slated to have the first smart city in America right here in Utah, and it's called The Point. Then we've got Utah City in where is that?
Vineyard.
In Vineyard will be one of the second ones.
Just to the south.
So we've got a governor who's very embedded with the World Economic Forum, which is why they're pushing Utah as a sanctuary state, saying we welcome everybody, opening our doors to people who are and allowing these criminals to be let free. So why should the people in Utah be concerned then about this?
They're coming to kill you. They're not coming to take votes. A lot of people are like, hey, these guys are coming to bring Democrat votes. They don't care about that. This is way beyond that, right? This is a literal genocide unfolding. They're setting conditions for genocide.
And welcome to We Are the People Radio. This is your host, Jason Preston, and again with rockin' Tom Hazelton. What's up, brother?
Let's go, buddy.
I am pumped today. Last time we had a show, we had Lieutenant Colonel Darren Gobb on, and it was lights out. And he said, hey, who you guys got to talk to is Michael Yon. Yeah. And we're like, no way, because I've been a huge fan of Michael Yon. So I learned about when he interviewed with Jordan Peterson, with the Dutch farmers, and I just started following him ever since then. And I'm like, are you willing to connect us? And he's like, I will. So we're like, no way. So spoiler alert, we got him today, and it's going to be an epic show. I'm going to have Tom introduce him in a second, but we are going to be talking about China today. And last time we really got into China, especially talking about one of the things we're going to talk about today, they took us down off YouTube. So please make sure you're following us on Rumble. And our channel is We Are the People UT, because I have a strong feeling YouTube will take this down. And on that note, we're not here to profit. We're here to stand up and be the tip of the spear in information warfare. And because of that, we will say what needs to be said, and YouTube will continue to give us strikes and continue to make sure that we are natively funded that way. The way you can help, go to our website. Whether it's our energy drink, shirts, hats, you can support us that way and help us continue to get this information out. Now, that out of the way, let's freaking rock and roll. Give us our intro of Michael Yon, and let's go.
All right, excited to have Michael Yon on today. Let me tell you guys a little bit about this amazing individual that's out there fighting this war. And you guys, he's not just talking about it. He's actually out in the streets, out in the different countries. I mean, he's tracking these things down. So a little background. So at 19, Michael Yon successfully completed the Green Beret training. That right there, that's a big deal. So his experience taught him the art of observing, surviving the most dangerous environments on Earth, combining his skills as a writer and photographer, and with the encouragement of fellow veterans, Michael began his correspondent career by traveling to Iraq in December 2004. So this has been 20 years roughly of this. This was the first step in nearly a 20-year journey, traveling the globe to report on world events firsthand. He traveled to more than 80 countries, including China, India, Bhutan, and Vietnam. So, Michael wanted me to tell you guys that he's not just a war correspondent like Geraldo.
Right,
okay?
Right.
He's a combat correspondent. So, and if you know the difference, there's a very big, distinct difference there. And what he does is he travels to the different countries and he tracks basically the art of war, of what's happening with these other countries that are infiltrating, really for the United States, food supplies, migration flow, all the information, and his experience, not just with the journalism and everything else that he has more combat experience than any other journalist. And, and it's not just, We Are the People that he's been on. Guys, he's been on Fox. He's been on Newsmax, ABC, NBC, CNN. I think they kicked him off. He's written 6 books, 3 of those books were actually written in Japanese to help the Japanese understand what China is trying to do to infiltrate and take over the Japanese culture, government, those types of things, and really just a lot of the Asian countries. They're really being dominated right now by China, and they don't understand what it is. So we're going to get into a lot of that today, but really excited to have Michael on with us, and he's a kick butt correspondent on the ground here, and he's doing some things that, hey guys, we need to know about this. And I'll tell you what, if this show doesn't grab your attention, I don't know what will. Let's go.
No, this is, like I said, Michael Yon, it is honestly an absolute pleasure to have you on. And for all of our listeners, I know mostly Utah based, what a blessing to have someone who is there is no one who's going to understand what is happening in the current warfare, which we are in. We are in war. Then Michael Yon, he is there. He's in Guatemala right now. He's been in Panama. He is documenting everything. When War Room, Steve Bannon wants to know what's going on, this is who they call. So without further ado, Michael Yon, welcome to the show, boss.
I really appreciate you inviting me on. I'm in Guatemala, of all places. It's actually pretty nice, actually. And it's actually kind of cool. We're at almost 5,000 feet up here. Volcanoes out the window. But this is one of the main migration routes, right? Or let's say invasion route. So when you have people funneling in through South America, going up to the Darien Gap through Colombia and, through Panama at that point, Costa Rica, Nicaragua, and then they go through Honduras, and then they end up here through Guatemala, then they go into Mexico. So this is a big funnel choke point. That's why I'm here.
Well, we're glad you're here. One of the reasons especially I'm interested in what's going on down there is, as you know, we've had an ICE agent basically say that Utah has been acting as a sanctuary state, that they are being told on the other side of the border, go to Utah, you will not be deported. And so what's happening at the border is a national security issue, and it is a security issue to those of us in Utah, because we know that there are many of them who are coming to our backyard. And so I think it's important that the people here in Utah be able to have hear from you on the ground what's going on and why they should be concerned. So with that being said, what are you seeing? What are you concerned about? Why are you down there? Tell us what you're seeing. Tell us what you're concerned about.
Well, this is a hybrid war. I mean, we're in a state of war. It hasn't gone into very serious kinetics yet, but it will. And that's why I'm here. If I come to your state, like I've set up shop in Texas, and a lot of the Texans are like, hey, wow, you're moving to our town. And I'm like, if I'm moving to your town, you should probably be selling your property. And I'm dead serious. For instance, Panama, where I spend so much time, I've been warning people there ever since Biden got into office that Panama is scheduled for the meat cleaver. Panama is one of the most vital terrains on planet Earth. There's almost nowhere on Earth that's more important than Panama. And almost no Americans seem to know that. There's the Panama Canal, which is vital. And then, it's incredibly important. And then it opened in 1914. And then there's the Darien Gap, the funnel, where if you can get your feet anywhere into South America from anywhere in the world, and there's flights every day, for instance, they go from Africa to Istanbul to Bogota, and then they get on buses and go through the Darien Gap. So every day you got flights coming in from Africa and different routes. Some go to Brazil. But bottom line is they all feed up to Colombia. Many feed up to Colombia. Some will fly out of Colombia, actually, and they'll go through the Darien Gap, right? And the Darien Gap is that gap. They call it the gap because there's about 60 miles of no road. It's just pretty epic jungle down there. And so the road ends at a place called Yavita in Panama, and it's Pan American Highway, and it picks up again in Colombia, a place called Turbo. But that series of highways goes all the way up to Alaska and all the way to Tierra del Fuego, except for that gap. So you got these people walking through the gap every day now. When I started going down there, and right after the let's say the installation of Biden, you could see that there was only like maybe 200 people a day coming through, right? It was a low number. And I've got a lot of the records because they were writing it down in logbooks at that point. And I asked people for photos of their logbooks. And at that time, so let's say April of 2021, I was looking at some of those sheets recently. You can see that it would be like, they would list handwritten all the different countries that are coming in. They were mostly Cubans and Haitians. And then there were, Suriname, things like that. There were people from Senegal and Nigeria and Niger and all these different places, and China. But China they would always have China on every page, every day, but usually it would be 0, China 0. Some days it would be like China 1, China 4, China 3, China 0, that sort of thing. So that was just April of 2021, right? Now let's hyperspace to now. I mean, I would say probably 400 Chinese a day just through that route, a day, just through that route. That's just that route. So you've got an entire ecosystem within an ecosystem for the Chinese. They tend to fly to Quito, Ecuador, and there's specific hotels that they stay in. Muckraker, Anthony Rubin, actually, who I took to the Darien Gap, he picked up a document in Mandarin from one of the Chinese migrants or aliens who gave it to him, let's say an invader, and it was in Mandarin language. Anthony Rubin got this translated to English, and then he flew back down to Quito, Ecuador, and started staying in the hotels that were written in, because that document tells Chinese exactly how to get through and get to the United States. Which numbers to call, which hotels to stay in, which roads, which trains, whichever, right? It's like a lonely planet for Chinese invaders, right? And so, in fact, that's on muckraker.com, that document. So if you want to read it in English, it's there, and you can find out a lot. And so you might find something in there about Utah as an example. So anyway, so Anthony went down there and he started staying in those hotels, and the entire hotels are filled with Chinese now. So not only are the Chinese using that as an underground railroad to get to the United States, a lot of them are sticking to the pipes, because you got to keep in mind, China is making a go at places like Peru, Ecuador, of course, Colombia, Venezuela. You see this war about to kick up with Venezuela and Guyana, or as Americans say, or as we say, Guyana. But there's a war is about to kick off there, and I'm just about guarantee it's actually going to kick off. In fact, I don't know if this is published, but the Venezuelans are actually making drones and that sort of thing. I don't know if that's in the news at all, but they're making homemade drones there with the help of Russians. And so, because, the Russians and CCP are very closely related there with Venezuela. There's a lot of Hamas in Venezuela. There's actually an area of Syria where they speak Spanish, and they speak Spanish in Syria because many of those people have come over to Venezuela and other places for generations, and a lot of them have bounced back to places like Syria where they speak Spanish. It's just weird things that you pick up along the way. But go ahead, sir.
Quick question. So if we're 400 a day, and we've been doing this for 2 years, that's roughly 300,000 that are coming up through our border of just Chinese.
Oh, hold on. That's just Darien. That doesn't include.
Gap. That's just that gap, right?
There's flight. Yeah, they're coming up on the beaches of Florida and over the northern, and they're also flying in and overstaying visas, and also a lot of them fly to Mexico City or Cancun or here in Guatemala, and they proceed from here. So they don't even go through the gap. They bypass it somehow.
So two-part question then. So how many would you say Chinese nationalists have come over here, number one, in the last 2 years since the Biden administration took over? And then what are the ages of these men, and are there women and children coming at all?
There are women and children coming, definitely, but they're mostly military-age males. And for instance, I think maybe one of the videos that I sent you is you can see them talking about drinking chicken blood. Yes. 6 military-age males came through.
Here we are, the famous Canose again. What happened?
So, wait, she's gonna come. Hold on. Did you order, Michael?
Yeah, I ordered eggs.
Los de siempre.
I heard that China want to eat your dog.
Estaba diciendo que los chinos estaban mediendo su perro, que estaba...
Es verdad. Es verdad.
They were joking. They were joking with her. They were joking with her.
No,
but they were looking at her.
They're not joking.
Él dice, cuidado con ese perro. Los chinos lo van a comer.
Tell her I was 1 year in China.
Él vivió en China 1 año y sí comen los perros como es muy normal.
Es todo normal.
Y este perro muy jugoso y grande.
Ay, no.
So Margarita came to me the other night and she started telling me, yeah, there were 6 Chinese migrants staying here, and they through an app, they came and they translate and they said, we want to buy one of your chickens because there's chickens walking around everywhere here. And she's like, all right, this is strange, but she's like, okay, I'll sell you the chicken. And so they took the chicken. She has a chopping block back there, and they cut off his head, and they poured the blood into 6 little cups, and they all drank it, and like right out of the chicken. And she was like, oh my gosh, watching this whole thing. And then they took the chicken, they took off the feathers, and they took the whole chicken, and they went into her kitchen, and they put it in a water pot with just water, and they poached it for 30 minutes only. And they took it out, and she watched him just eat this thing, and it was still kind of rubbery and raw, and she said it was just horrifying. I don't know. Anyway, yeah, so she's seen some interesting stuff coming through her restaurant here.
Through the Darien Gap.
Yeah. Crazy story.
And they wanted to eat her dog. Wow, okay.
So, all right. So we just saw the video. It's crazy. These basically these Chinese talking about, or this. So tell us what was that? What was going on there with that lady and these guys drinking these chicken blood? What was that all about? So tell us.
That's a 1-star hotel. That's a 1-star hotel called Tenose down in Darien province. So as the survivors who make it through the Darien Gap, some will stay in that hotel. Very few, but the Chinese sometimes stay in there. So I stay there, right? And it's a good place to pick up information, right? It's right beside one of the camps that Mayorkas has been to twice. I call it China Camp. The Panamanians call it San Vicente Camp, right? That's right beside the Tenose Hotel. Those 6 Chinese came in. You see on the video, or the lady, actually, Margarita is her name. And she's describing how they came in and asked for the chicken. There's always chickens running around there. I've eaten a bunch of them. And they chopped its head off and drank its blood. And so immediately I thought, whoa, okay, that sounds like special operations guys, because I've seen this in different countries like Thailand, different countries where they'll do things like Thailand, they'll drink cobra blood, that sort of thing. And so I asked for a statement on that. So bottom line is that so as we researched it more, we found that is a ritual that some of their special operations forces do in China. So I just keyed in on that because this is sort of my job, right? And so, we picked up a lot of information around there, and you see Chinese have different ecosystems. Like I said, like a lot of the Chinese will go straight to Brooklyn, New York, like the Fujianese speakers, and they go to different places. Like, I took 2 Chinese down there with me one time. One was a Cantonese speaker, one was a Mandarin speaker. And after we spoke with about 50 Chinese on that trip, none of the aliens coming through spoke Cantonese. They all spoke Fujianese or Mandarin or some other dialect, but none were Cantonese speakers. And it's interesting though, because where are they all coming from, and how many are in America, you ask? And I don't know. We wonder that every day. We kick it around with people who should know, but and they could know. They could know by tracking different sorts of phone data. We know, for instance, one guy that we intercepted coming through the Gap one night. Often when you're questioning people, the best time to question them is at nighttime when they're tired, especially if they're alone. And we separated one off at nighttime. His name was Luan Jia, right? It turned out he got very angry with Masako Ganaha, a Japanese journalist who actually is right here. We're actually running around investigating things here together. And actually, Masako Ganaha is the one that tracked down Klaus Schwab in Davos last year that went viral. But anyway, so we're out there in the jungle, or not in the jungle, we're on the edge. We're in the Darien province. So these Chinese just came out of the jungle. And one got very angry at Masako because he saw her filming with her phone. And he was threatening, actually. And he came down. That's a good time. If you can calm somebody down when they're in that emotional state, it was nighttime. He was itching. He was scratching a lot. I think he had just been eaten up by these bugs called monongoi, is what the Indians call them. And they're terrible. Anyway, he was in an emotional state, very angry. So I thought, well, this is it. Nighttime. We got him calmed down. It was kind of difficult. And he started rambling on about his story. And so for about an hour and a half, we got video and some video, mostly audio of what he said. So he was leaking. He said that his English was extremely good. And he said that he had gone to Bahamas. And as you know, there's a giant Chinese embassy in Bahamas, a huge embassy. And he said that he bought a boat from a Scotsman. And he was heading to Florida. And he said he was with his father. And he said he ran out of fuel. So that was that this year? I think that was, Masako, was that this year? When did we find Luan? Was that this year or last year? Anyway, well, she's sitting over here, but the bottom line is yeah. So Luan said that he ran out of fuel and the U.S. Coast Guard picked him up, and he got sent back to the Bahamas, right? And they were deporting him back to China, but he flew through Cuba. He changed his flight to Quito, Ecuador, and then he took that route, and we intercepted him as he came out of the jungle. Now, I checked my sources. He had been picked up by the Coast Guard. That was a fact. We actually got one of his IDs from China and all kinds of other stuff. That guy's a straight up spy. I mean, he was like, his English was very good. His body language was almost American. You know, they have an American town in China where they train some of these spies, right? And they have American post office and the whole works. I mean, it's not an American town, but it has people that are speaking just like we speak with no accent, and you learn how to do everything. So you've got a lot of the people that are coming in that are clearly like family units. You got others that are coming in that are probably running from the law or something. They might not have been in China for 10 years. Maybe they were living in Thailand or something. And then you've got others coming in that are probably MSS or something along those lines, Ministry of State Security, which is like their CIA, right? And then they have, different, anyway, go ahead, sir.
Well,
you were going to say something?
No, I actually wasn't. But one question I do have, and I get from a lot of people, because I have a lot of political conversations with people all the time, and when we talk about the border, a lot of people say, well, these people are just coming up because they're looking for jobs, they're looking for opportunity. Is that what's going on? What would you say to these people who say that we need to allow these people in? We shouldn't be concerned. These people are just looking for a better life.
Well, okay, as an example, I'm in Guatemala and there's a Walmart down the street. Okay. And there's a Starbucks around the corner, right? In fact, I just walked by the Starbucks coming here to talk with you, right? So, I mean, is this really that poor? I mean, when you go, I was just in Belize a couple of weeks ago researching some of these issues up there. When you cross the border into Mexico from Belize, the first big store you come to is a Sam's. And I stopped there to get an SD card, and I didn't have a Sam's card. It was going to be like $100. We're like, forget it. So we went to Walmart and got it. So this is right across the border into Mexico from Belize. These are nice places. To get here, you have to go through places like Quito, Ecuador. There's Americans that go down there and buy homes. You know what I mean? And Colombia, the same thing. One guy I was in the war with in Iraq, in Mosul, he lives down in Bogota now. He lives in Medellin now, and he loves it down there. So, I mean, people come, there's a lot of Americans that go down to these countries and they live there because it's so nice. But you have all these aliens coming through because we're feeding the ducks. If you want more ducks, throw more corn on the ground. The United States is clearly facilitating our own invasion. And the World Economic Forum and the Chinese Communist Party have clearly captured parts of our government. If you go to some of those camps in the Darien Gap, as an example, which I've been to all of them, all right, and some of those have our flag flying in them, not on a flagpole, but and I photographed them. I may have sent some of those to you. If not, I'll send them to you. And you can see, like, Mayorkas landed there on April 18th of 2022. I waited for him for 4 days. A congressman told me that he thought Mayorkas was heading down there. So I said, whoa. So I went and I waited. And I thought, well, if he comes, I bet he'll land with Blackhawks here. And I waited for 4 days. And he did. Landed right in front of me with 4 Blackhawks. So he went into that camp called China Camp, right beside the Tenose Hotel, where the guys drink the blood. And he came into that camp, and they published this. You can see that Mayorkas is there. They got the sand table out. These are photos that you can find online in like 30 seconds that they published, that the Homeland Security guys published. So Mayorkas was coming down there to expand the camps, and he was open about it, right? So now I've got drone footage of that day when he's in the camp, and I've got drone footage of a year later, which is this year, multiple times, and you can see the camp is much, much larger. That's just one camp. There's other camps now that are much larger too. It's clear that the infrastructure in the Darien Gap is being expanded by multiples. So when I've gone on Alex Jones and talked with him, in fact, I was just talking with him about it today. When those camp, I'm telling you, dry season is starting right now, right? The flows to the Darien Gap are likely to probably double or so. Keep in mind, let's rewind the tapes just to like April or so of 2021, when it would be like maybe 200 a day coming in. Big day, 300 came in today or whatever, right? Now it's like 5,000, 6,000. Wow. And the Costa Rican president and the Panamanian president were down there on October 6th. We were there as well. And they announced they're going from 60 buses to 200, right? These are buses that pick them up after they cross the Darien Gap. So they're now in Darien province. and they would take them to the Costa Rican border, and then they would have to get on other transportation to go to the Nicaraguan border. But now the Costa Rican president and the Nicaraguan president, and the Panamanian president, the Costa Rican and Panamanian president down in Darien at a camp called Las Blancas. In fact, they built 3 LZs there for helicopters, which weren't there before. They suddenly built 3 LZs where the presidents landed and that sort of thing. And they announced this, right? You see the hyperlapse I sent you of the time lapse of all the aliens getting off the boat.
Yeah, just boat after boat.
That was where the presidents were. However, on the day that they came, nobody was coming in, right? Anyway. So there was a few. There was a token number came in.
Michael, so you've got these different presidencies from these countries that are all working in cooperation. They're obviously taking money from probably the WEF, the CCP, to have these things, and they say, yeah, you come to our country, you'll build up our economy, and we don't care. It sounds like. And the question I have as a follow-up on this is, when they get to the United States, I know they're going all over the place. Where are they staying, and who is funding this? What do you know about that once they leave the Mexican border and come here? And then obviously at that point, are they coming and joining society as a normal person would be, or somebody that's in the workforce, and then, okay, now it's time, and then all of a sudden, like on the movie I, Robot, where they go from green to red or whatever, and then they become nefarious. Is that what's happening here? What's the end goal?
Some are clear gangsters, like MS-13 or whatever, right? Like, AK-47 tattoo next to the eye, that sort of thing. You know what I mean? I published one guy this year, a few months ago, and he's like, you can tell he's a super gangster, right? So a lot of them are like that. Many guys, when we ask them where they're going to, they're like, I don't know, they'll be like California, New York. Everybody knows the name New York. They'll just throw names out. Haitians will often be actually heading to Florida, or Cubans often go to Florida or New York, that sort of thing. But a lot of them actually don't know where they're going. And others, there's different ecosystems of people that are coming in. Even the sub-ecosystem, let's say the Chinese, most of those will go to their Chinese communities, like whether it's in some part of New York, Flushing, New York, or Brooklyn, or somewhere in California, and they'll get plugged right in. Like you have these marijuana farms all over Oklahoma now, and Maine, and Oregon, that many of them are run by Chinese. They're literally going straight to these farms. So you got those types coming in. And then you've got others. When you meet them, you're like, this guy's like a paramilitary or something. I mean, I meet some of them. I'm like, this is not a normal dude. This is like some kind of operative. I mean, they're clearly, they come through, they're in much better, actually, almost all the Chinese that come through are in far better condition than anybody else. First of all, they pay a lot more money. They pay a lot more money. They pay about $20,000. Most of them will say about $20,000 by the time they get to Quito, go through Colombia, get through the Darien. They take an easier route to the Darien Gap, right? So they take a route that takes a boat ride around into this place called Cunayala with the Cuna Indians, and they'll take about a 2-day walk through the jungle. And on that route, I've never heard of anybody dying on that route, actually, not in the last year or two. But on the other route, the hard route, I mean, that's where it's, about 3 years ago, I would say it was about 10% fatalities. Right now, I'd say it's less than 1%. But 3 years ago, it was epic. I mean, it was unbelievable how many people were dying. But there were fewer people coming in. It would be like 200 or 300 a day coming in, and you would hear about, the flash flood. Like one group that came in of 40, and literally 20 had been swept away. So, I mean, that's just, that was par for the course back then. But now they've made the course easier. It's still difficult. Still people die every day. But the Chinese, on their route, they pay more. Now, muckraker.com people, Anthony Rubin and his brother Josh, they just went through Darien about a month ago. They got kidnapped 2 weeks ago, actually, in Mexico. They went through Darien, and they went, I told you, they went to Quito, Ecuador. They went with the Chinese hotels. They went with the Chinese through Darien, and they were with some Syrians as well, and some Venezuelans, and some Bangladeshis, and some others. And they made it out. They made it to China camp, and then they flew up here to Guatemala with me. But the bottom line is they took that easier route, and it still took them about 2.5 days. But the Chinese make it through with panache. The Chinese, as you see the Chinese coming across at Yuma or San Diego or whatever, you'll always see they look good. Because what the Chinese will do is they carry an extra set of clothes in their backpacks, and they throw those other ones away. They put the new ones on, but they have money. They wire themselves money in advance and that sort of thing, and they have an ecosystem. So even if everything was lost, they come right into that Chinese ecosystem, and they'll be squared away. They've got their own, what we call coyotes, they call them snakeheads. And so the system of snakeheads all through Mexico and Mexico City and Tapachula and all these different places, It's just like an underground railroad just for the Chinese.
So when they
let's I want to put this up on the screen here. This you sent me this video, this animation that in Chinese they're showing these people. What is this? Walk us through what we're seeing here.
You can see that's in Mandarin, and they fly to Quito. It's just showing, okay, you fly to Quito.
What is
you get on the bus, you go to Colombia.
What is it though? Where did you come across that? Like, where did you? What is it?
Oh, the Chinese share that on WeChat. So they've got they've got documents, they've got websites, they know how to. The Chinese, they're not like the Haitians come in like helter skelter. You know what I mean? I mean they communicate with each other and that sort of thing, but they're not as organized as the Chinese. The Chinese are building the ant trail, a proper, this is where you get water. This is where the Haitians just come in and kind of hit the jungle and live or die. And, and most of the people are like that. But some of the ones that are quite organized, like some of the Middle Easterners, they're quite organized. They come through in units, right? You see Afghans. I see Afghans come in every day. And for me, they're easy to spot because I spent 2 years running around Afghanistan. And often I'll talk with them. And a lot of the Afghans that come through speak English quite well, actually. And so the Afghans will come through in groups, right? And they're almost all military-age males. So the Chinese, they've got it down. And it's very smooth. For instance, one Chinese guy that landed in Quito, he went through the Darien, and then he was up in New York. And within about 1 week, he had a driver's license because we tracked him. Actually, who should have one is Lawrence Sellon. Lawrence is a retired Army colonel. He tracks these guys like crazy. So Lawrence and I work together a lot. I'll supply him a lot of information, and he runs it down. The guy's amazing. Whether it's Texas and other parts, there's a big kayfabe. Kayfabe is that old wrestling term where it's just a fake fight. Like you'll see Governor Abbott in Texas, Greg Abbott. He's a member of the World Economic Forum, right? And so you'll see him putting out the concertina wire and saying, Biden's people are cutting the concertina wire. Oh, we're putting the rubber things in the river in the Rio Grande, and they're removing those. It's all bullshit.
Yeah.
I mean, Abbott is one of them. One of the main developer of a illegal alien community north of Houston called Liberty. It's in Liberty County. It's called Colony Ridge, right? And I and Ann Vandersteel, we took up a couple of congressmen and helicopters and some other Daily Wire and other people. We took quite a few people up looking at that down on the ground and up in it. This is a colony for more than 200,000 migrants, mostly migrants, illegal aliens coming in. Not all, but that's what it is. It's a colonia. For those who don't know what a colonia is, it means like colony or ghetto sort of thing, right? And that's what there's these colonias all over the Texas-Mexico border.
Michael,
and the bottom line is,
I've seen this one, and it is intense how large this place is, and the residents around it haven't been able to do anything about it. I have a family member that lives just south of that, and they're very concerned about what's happening. And these people are getting free housing, free development, free housing. I mean, everything's coming in. So that's the question: who is funding all of this?
Trey Harris is the main developer and the owner there. Trey Harris. He gave $1.4 million to Abbott's campaign. Trey Harris, right? Just look up Trey Harris and $1.4 million, right? I mean, so this is obviously huge money flying. Todd Bensman, my friend, he's an author and a retired Texas Department of Public Safety guy. He was an intel guy. We were briefing some Texans earlier this year, and he's written a few books, and one of them is a great book called Overrun. And in the last chapter of Overrun, Todd talks about that colonia. And we got finished briefing those guys in Texas. Todd said, hey, let's go over and see this colonia, because I hadn't seen it. And he said, basically, Todd wanted to take me out there because he knew what I would do with it. So we went out there to that colonia, and it was huge. And the drones couldn't fly high enough to see it. I said, let's go get a helicopter or go get an airplane. We went and got an airplane and came back that day, and we couldn't get it high enough. So I said, let's go get a helicopter. And it was too late. So we came back later with a helicopter, right? And we're like, this is unbelievable. I mean, you look at it from Google Earth, you look at it, but I wanted to see, I didn't want to do Google Earth. I want to get kind of lower, and I want my own photos, right? And so we got up over there, and then we came back later. Actually, a patriot named Dave Cannon, he took us up in this helicopter, like, I don't know, probably 15 flights now. We took up Congressman Babin and Luttrell and the sheriff and all, bunch of journalists. Like Ann Vandersteel is part of the team. She's an integral part of the team, actually, not just an outlier. She's central to it. And Doc Chambers, Pete Chambers, if you know him, And we took a lot of people up. So then it went viral. That's why you see this all over the news now, is because that's what we did. Then after that, we went down to SpaceX. We spent a couple of weeks down there with the intent of trying to get Elon Musk to go to the border. As you can see, he then went to the border, right? And by the way, our two guys that just got kidnapped 2 weeks ago, they got kidnapped just near SpaceX on the Mexican side. A lot of Americans don't realize that SpaceX at Boca Chica, I love that place. I've been there 30 or 40 times. But the Rio Grande River dumps very close to the launch pad. So when Starship just took off, I mean, there would have been, scattering everything out there. I mean, nobody would have been allowed to be on the American side that close because it was incredibly dangerous. But on the Mexican side, just across from the river, our guys were coming up at muckraker.com, Anthony Rubin and Josh Rubin, and they got kidnapped. And so this is like Tuesday, 2 weeks ago, right? And so the Gulf cartel picked them up. They could see the flashing light on top of the launch gantry for Starship was on it, right? It hadn't launched yet. It was up there for the second launch. It's now launched. And they got kidnapped. And so they got blindfolded. They got their hands bound. And the Gulf cartel guys took them to a field. I was watching their icon go to a field, actually. And, I started contacting people, and we're watching their icon on the field like, this could be serious. And the Gulf cartel guys, just keep in mind, in March of this year, Gulf cartel took 4 Americans, killed 2 of them, and one of them was one that survived was hiding under the body of one of his killed friends. And the Gulf cartel was like, you killed Americans, right? It's okay to kill Mexicans or something, but not Americans because they have a relationship. The Gulf cartel, which is, it's been in existence for about 100 years at least, they immediately apologized on the news to the families of the victims and to the United States government. So this was in like March of this year. So when Anthony and Josh just got kidnapped in like 2 weeks ago, they took them to that field. They then took their blindfold up, watched them and smashed their camera gear and phones, and did not steal their stuff, just smashed it in front of them, and then delivered them to the Border Patrol at the Brownsville border crossing at the bridge. We watched their icon go to the bridge. One of them had a small one, and then I called Border Patrol and said something like, you happen to have 2 white guys that just got kidnapped, and actually they were right in front of them. They handed the phone to Josh, and they were okay. Anyway, they immediately got back into America and bought new camera gear, and they're ready to go back into action. But I mean, the bottom line is this is the kind of collusion that's between. They literally dropped our guys off to the Border Patrol, just near SpaceX. Let me get to something on this. That Colonia at Liberty County, north of Houston, by your relatives, it's right by the I-69 corridor, right? The I-69 corridor goes right down through, it will go through right past me here, down through Panama, down as the Chinese open up the Darien Gap with a railway and a road. Panamanians say, they can never put a road through the Darien. I'm like, dude, they built a canal right across your country like more than a century ago. They can definitely build a rail. In fact, they're building it right now. I'm down there all the time watching them build it. And so, but they're building this corridor that goes right by that Colonia, right by SpaceX, right by the harbor there, Brownsville and all that, goes right up to Detroit, the Great Lakes. It's called the I-69 corridor. You got to keep in mind the places that I go and where these weaponized migrations are occurring. This is all part of a hybrid war. This isn't just random stuff. This is a very serious war plan that's unfolding. Well, and so you see the Gulf cartel. The Gulf cartel and other Sinaloa and others. They cooperate very. You go over to Yuma side, and you'll see if you're at Yuma where the fence kind of ends there for a little, where there's a break in the fence, and if you just sit there and you'll see like 3 buses will show up, and maybe an hour later, the exact number of aliens will come in to fill 3 buses, right? they cooperate. And Todd Bensman broke this actually. He broke this last year, I think, that they actually coordinate so that we don't get a bunch of aliens sitting on our side of the border very long, which is bad optics for American media, right?
So what you're saying is this is not just immigration. Are you saying you're saying this is a form of warfare and our government is part of it, participating?
Our government is killing us. Our government is invading us. I know as crazy as that sounds, that is what's happening. Straight up. I mean, our government is clearly doing it. Our government down in Panama, as an example, or Our embassy is essentially worthless. They spend all their time doing the LGBT bullshit. That's what they do. They're doing the same thing in many countries, right? Whether it's Thailand or Japan, they're just pushing their nonsense. Meanwhile, China is clearly taking Panama straight out. You see all these issues that are going, and the canal is actually going quite dry right now. And, there's something going on. First of all, it's a dry year it's actually a particularly dry El Nino. But they also built the other canal, which drains a lot more water out of Gatun Lake. But there seems to be some other things going on too. Not to go into that. But the bottom line is the canal itself, usually it's about, 38 ships a day or so. I think it's down to about half that, or it will be down to about half that in February. But this dry season is starting right now, right? And the lake is, when you go out on Gatun Lake, there's like tens of thousands of trees that haven't seen air for, since about 1914, or very rarely. Because, that they opened the canal in 1914. So all these trees, these giant trees were underwater. And now you have to go very slow out there because, you can get the bottom of your boat ripped out. But a lot of the trees are towering over your head now while you're of course, the trees don't have any branches on them. They've been underwater for more than a century. But the lake is so low. And this will affect drinking water for Panama City and also salinity issues in the canal. It will be taken. I don't see how they're going to get out of it at this point. You see the mining issues that are in the news a lot. Like, right now the Supreme Court of Panama made a decision 48 hours ago or so about I won't go into the details, but the bottom line is, if we just skip past all the details and get to the bottom line, the United States is helping WEF, World Economic Forum and CCP take Panama. Now, sometimes I leave Panama and I fly over to Netherlands. For instance, in March this year, I was in Netherlands, and for the elections, I flew straight from Panama to Netherlands, actually for that interview with Jordan. Jordan asked me if I would go to Netherlands for an interview, and I said, I'm in Panama, I'll pay my ticket and I'll go. So I went over to Netherlands, right? And so I was there I often go to Netherlands now because it's another vital train. As I mentioned before, Panama is one of the most vital trains on planet Earth. There's almost nothing more important to the United States than Panama. And people just don't get it.
Well,
another one that's very important is
the Monroe Doctrine is very specific to protect this entire hemisphere. And that should clearly be a grounds for going to war is over the Monroe Doctrine. Would you agree? I mean, Monroe Doctrine,
100%.
We do not allow any other of the country invading anywhere in this hemisphere. We are protected from foreign allies or foreign enemies.
It's the opposite is going on now. We're literally inviting them in, and so literally like helping China do things. For instance, now let's go over to Netherlands. Netherlands is very important because there's two incredible harbors that are there. Rotterdam is in Netherlands. It's the biggest harbor in Europe. It's at the mouth of the Rhine River, which is like their Mississippi, right? So there's Rotterdam, the biggest harbor in Europe, and the second largest harbor is Antwerp, which is just south of Rotterdam, right? So those are the two biggest harbors in Europe, right? That's how important they are. There are these arteries right here. And those are going to be, in the future, if this continues, in something called Tri-State City. It's a huge smart city, which is, they call it tri-state, three-state city, because it's most of Netherlands, part of Belgium, and part of Germany. And it will include those two harbors. But it's a giant smart city. So all this replacement of the farmers and whatnot, that's to make tri-state city. So you see the same ecosystem of people that are coming in here are going in there, like Afghans, Pakistan, all this Tower of Babel. These people won't be able to cooperate on a large level over there. And a lot of people think, all the Muslims that come in and gang up on us, they'll fight each other more than anything else. Even different tribes of Nigerians will fight each other, right? So it's not one of the let's say evil beauties of this plan is all these people that they're bringing in, they won't be able to cooperate with each other. Nobody will have critical mass. I mean, they might, as individuals go out and shoot up a mall or a mosque or a mosque too. I mean, for those who were in places like Iraq and Afghanistan, you would see often, they spent more time killing each other than us, right? And so, but the bottom line is, these are replacement people. So the replacement for Tri-State City is the same sort of ecosystem that's flooding across our borders, with the Chinese kicker very hard across our borders. And again, keep in mind, China has already justified why to the Chinese, that this is theirs. All of North America, Central America, where I'm at now, Guatemala, like right now, there's an archaeological dig down in Honduras next door where the Chinese archaeologists are trying to prove to the Mayan people that they're related to Mayans, right? So that the Chinese and the Mayans are related. And they're saying, well, these Spanish and these white people came and took your land. And, it's the same thing they're saying to Native Americans up in the United States and down in South America, Panama, all these different places, right? And so they're using this as justification to literally take our countries. Straight up genocide and take them.
So you're familiar, we've been emailing a little back and forth of the document that was leaked by the CCP, Chinese Minister Wei Feng. Basically, it's about their strategy to get rid of the people here on America using biological genetic weapons to get rid of the people here in America and then recolonize America with the Chinese. Are you familiar with that article or with that to speech?
Oh, yeah, I read it.
Okay,
I read it, and yeah, so quite long actually, and yeah, and they're doing that. I mean, they're executing the mission right now.
So, to the people here in Utah, that especially where our governor, who is very much involved with World Economic Forum and pushing smart cities, supposedly we are actually slated to have the first smart city in America right here in Utah, and it's called The Point. Then we've got Utah City in where is that?
Vineyard.
In Vineyard will be one of the second ones.
Just to the south.
So we've got a governor who's very embedded with the World Economic Forum, which is why they're pushing Utah as a sanctuary state, saying we welcome everybody, opening our doors to people who are and allowing these criminals to be let free. So why should the people in Utah be concerned then about this?
They're coming to kill you. They're not coming to take votes. A lot of people are like, hey, these guys are coming to bring Democrat votes. They don't care about that. This is way beyond that, right? This is a literal genocide unfolding. They're setting conditions for genocide. People ask me all the time, what'll the spark be? And I'm like, listen, sparks are amateur questions. It's about the conditions, right? When the forest is dry, any spark will do. There's always sparks. Every day there's sparks, things happen. But if the conditions aren't right, it doesn't matter. You can have a 747 filled with gasoline crash in the Darien Gap in rainy season, and the only thing that's going to burn is that little smoking hole where it blew up, right? It's not going to burn the jungle down because the conditions aren't right for it. But now we have the United States. You see our economy's collapsing. You see the hyperinflation is on the way. There's clearly going to be food shortages. You see food is under attack. You see all these fires, unexplained fires. You see attacks on natural gas, which is very important for creating nitrogenous fertilizers using Haber-Bosch process, and which you may have seen me talking about with Jordan Peterson before. And it's clear that the food inflation around the world is clearly going up, right? And all these things cause that hop, that human osmotic pressure. The human osmotic pressure is the push and the pull of migration. So as they open up these routes, for instance, the Darien Gap is getting easier and easier. The infrastructure is being built out, whether that's the human infrastructure. There are camps being built all over. A lot of people don't get that. They think it's conspiracy theory. I'm like, listen, here's some conspiracy theory. Fly to Texas, go to Brownsville, go to the Walmart Supercenter right by the Walmart, and try to go into that former Walmart Supercenter. It's got like 1,500 boys in it right now. Who are those boys? I mean, we've been there. That's one of the child warehouses. These things are all over the place.
What do you mean child warehouses?
It's right there in Brownsville. It's where who are the children there, right? We have one whistleblower. Oh, straight up. You can see the child trafficking is right in everybody's faces, right?
Let's go to Brownsville.
And there's many camps like this. Oh, yeah, it's right there. We'll give you the coordinates. We'll give you all kinds of information. I got enough to fill up a closet. In fact, one of the whistleblowers gave us the addresses. I think it was 8,700 or 8,300, more than 8,000 addresses where a lot of the children have been dropped off to.
Wow. All
over the United States, in every state, Utah, Florida, all over Florida. And they'll take off out of like Harlingen Airport or McAllen every single day and night. They're being escorted to other airports around the United States. They're being delivered to people that are not their families, not their. You can ask. I can introduce you to Carlos Arelas. He's a whistleblower and he's public about it. I'll introduce you and to some others,
Carlos,
and they can give you a lot of. I'll give it to you offline,
okay.
And I'll give you his phone number, and I'll call him up and tell him I introduced you. And he has got tremendous amount of information. And he's not the only one. And now, he was working for them for years as an escorting with children, 2 or 3 years, I think. And it might have been 4. Anyway, you'll have to talk with him. In fact, I got a private investigator to fly down and properly interview him. so that it was all legal and, and a loan and you're not being coerced and that sort of thing. And so we've got all the statements down and that sort of thing. And Carlos has been very forthcoming. He said he was afraid for a long time to come forth, but his mother is a very Christian woman. And his mother was like, you've got to do the right thing. And then she gave him that courage. It was his mother that really he's lucky with his mother. And now he's come forward with all this stuff. And it's amazing. It's like people should be in prison for it. The sheriff of that county and the police chief should be down there with their SWAT teams, but they're not, and anyway, we've got so much information. It'll blow your mind.
Michael.
And yet nothing, and they're building, as we speak, they're building camps all over the place in Texas.
Why? So we've got all these, we've talked about where these men are coming in, these children that are filling these areas. Just, I need to have a follow-up on this. Where are these children coming from?
All over the place. And we don't know. I mean, we see them coming in, and the Border Patrol, and there's a lot of patriots in Border Patrol, and there's a lot of other ones that are just doing their job, sir. And they're just literally, you'll often hear, like if you go down on the border, you're going to hear Border Patrol often say to you, well, soon we'll have a new administration and things will change. But they keep loading the buses,
Just
right?
obeying orders.
And I'm just doing my job, sir, following orders, right? I'm like, this is illegal.
What?
You're invading your own country. You're not going to get a retirement. They're going to kill you.
What do you say to these officers? These whether it's police officers or military, they're told to. I mean, these young men are coming in. They're trying to do the right thing, follow orders, they're coming to serve the country. And what do you say to them? What?
As a student of war I used to live in Germany. Ich spreche Deutsch. I speak German. I've been to a lot of death camps in Poland and Germany also. And you often would wonder, like, how did the Germans ever fall for that? Because clearly not all of the Germans were that way. And suddenly they're like, they got the big eyes, and they're in the cult. And now I see it in real time unfolding across Europe and the United States and Japan and people. It's a cult. One of the things I found, you'll never go wrong in studying cults. I would recommend that everybody study cults. You'll never see the cult that you're in, right? I started studying cults when I was actually in special forces. Some of the older guys were like, they'd be like, 35 or 40. To me, that was old. They would be like, they would be, you need to study world religions. I'm like, study world religions? I want to study explosives. You know what I mean? I'm here to fight. And but they're like, you're in special forces. You're not. If you want to do that, go to Rangers, right? So that actually got me quite interested in those sorts of things. So later, after the Army, I started studying cults more. I infiltrated one and lived with one. I learned a lot about cults and about how people get into cults. And you'll never go wrong with doing that.
How's the military?
The only cult,
how is that a cult for the military, though? For these young men, they're trying to serve their country.
There's different layers of the cult. Like this cult that I infiltrated, they categorize their members of the cult as inner circle, outer circle, and periphery, right? And there was like the core of the people. That was the leadership. And then the inner circle, and then the outer circle, and the periphery. And a lot of people, they might just be the periphery, but they're support base, right? Or they're just doing their job. They're not really maybe a Nazi, but they're doing the Nazis' work, right? I mean, the bottom line is if you're loading those buses and you're running those camps right now, you're doing exactly what those young Nazi soldiers did who later were, on trial. And they're like, well, I had to follow orders, right? I had to get my paycheck.
I saw something today that leads into that. There's two types of disclosure or information warfare, if you will. There's the slow drip or the controlled disclosure where they have it over 10, 15, 20 years, 100 years. They've been working on some of these things. And then there's catastrophic disclosure where it's all at once, So all of a sudden we don't believe in aliens and now we do. Okay, we're not at war, now we're at war. But a lot of these things like taking the, people out of their family, LGBTQ stuff, and trafficking children and people coming across the border, it's a slow acceptance of these things until, like the frog boiling. All of a sudden you've got that frog in the water now that's heated up and now you're done. Okay, so at what point do we hit this catastrophic point? Because we've been at a slow drip, for a long time, and especially since Biden's been in, and trying to figure out what this is all about. We know what it's about, but the American people, like you said, are so asleep And how did Nazi Germany fall into that? Well, it's the exact same thing. It's a slow drip until it becomes catastrophic, and then everybody's in and they all believe it.
Yeah, nothing's new under the sun. I mean, I read that book, Nazi Doctors, when it came out in about the 90s, right? And now you see that's actually what has unfolded again. We saw the weaponization of the medical community, right? Clearly putting people to death, basically, with some of the things that they were doing to them, right? And with the death jabs and everything else. I mean, clearly committing genocide, right? And that's actually, back in Nazi times, they were that frog, right? A lot of the nurses, they didn't want to kill the baby, so they would just leave them out to get hypothermia and that sort of thing. They let Mother Nature do it. I mean, you just can't make up this stuff. But humans will do that. I mean, you can just, the people that know how to create cults, of which there are many, it's a type of art, actually. And we're surrounded by cults. They're all over the place. I mean, and again, the only cult you'll never see is the cult you're in. That's one of the things I learned about cults. And for instance, the suicide bombers, which, I've seen quite a few attacks by suicide bombers and right up close. And those guys are one guy, he lives near San Diego now. He's an Afghan. He was almost a suicide bomber, right? And he was studying actually, I can introduce you to him. You can interview him. His English is very good. I got to know him in Afghanistan. He came up to me one day. I was out near the Iranian border anyway, we were out. We weren't with any soldiers. I was with this former Marine named Tim Lynch, and this guy. We were just out running around with these Baluch people, and this guy kept watching me day after day. I'm like, hey man, why do you keep watching me? He goes, you saved my life. He said that to me. And I said, what do you mean? He goes, his English is very good. He goes, I was going to wear the bomb. I was like, okay. And he said he'd watched those videos over in Iraq with Blackwater, doing the things or whatever. And he goes, that was Iraq, but he's an Afghan. He's actually a Baluch. And he's like, I was gonna attack, right? And he said he was starting to do his homework, gathering intel. Basically, he started reading my work, and he started to realize that we didn't all hate them, right? And he decided not to wear the bomb. So anyway, we've become friends actually. Now he's literally got a U.S. passport and lives in California. And so he'll tell you the story. He'll come on and tell. But he was going down that route, and somehow he got jerked out of it before he detonated. But anyway,
I think we talk about warfare, which we are in war right now, and I think to me, and we've talked about this before the show, is the tip of the spear in warfare is information warfare. And we are losing it in the West. We are losing it in this country. It's clear because the masses have no idea that anything's going on. They sense there's problems at the border. They sense there's obviously problems with our economy. There's obviously problems with the country being at war with each other, but they can't put it together. They sense something's wrong with what they're saying with the mask. It doesn't add up. But we are so the child trafficking you talked about. But the media has been captured. The narrative is captured. The propaganda machine is so effective in this country that the masses are just walking around like sleeping zombies, which is why we are so invested. My wife and we're the people, and all Chelsea and all the those who are part of this. We're so invested in fighting back with information, which is why we have you on here. Which is why we're trying to break through the culture here in Utah and wake people up. Talk to us about information warfare. Talk to us about why that's important. What are you seeing? What does information warfare mean to you?
Information war is clearly the highest form of warfare. And, again, everything is subordinate to that. And actually, I'm going to have to go soon because I've got but I still got a couple minutes, but I just wanted to, because I have to wrap. Unfortunately, I have those tech problems getting started. So, but we can do it again soon when I'm in Honduras if you'd like. And Excellent. This time unfortunately, I had to move places, and we couldn't get the tech working. But information war is the highest form of warfare. And again, that's why I studied cults. That's why I spent so much time running around the world and going with different cultures and watching how information flows and that sort of thing. But now, information war it's at an entirely new level, right? It's the same techniques, it's the same persuasion techniques and that sort of thing. But it's been brought up to an industrial scale with these phones that we're on and gathering data about us, micro-targeting and knowing where we're at all times and that sort of thing. We're in for a big time. Keep in mind, these people that are invading across the borders, they will they're easily tracked and they're easily instructed through their phones. They can easily be, the masters that be can say, hey, we've got these Somalis and hey, there's a house right in front of you. Take that house. It's yours. Basically Stalin did that with the kulaks. They didn't have cell phones back then. But I mean, he was the same way. He was like, hey, these kulaks are the ones taking all your wealth and just go take their farms. It's yours. Take it. Nobody's going to do anything. And that's what happened. Huge numbers of Ukrainians were killed. And Mao did that over. Of course, Mao learned a lot from Stalin. Did similar in China. Pol Pot. This is a long history of people doing this, saying those are the bad guys. Those are the Jews. Go smoke the Jews. Take their businesses. Take their farms. Take their whatever. Right. And it happens because now they'll first of all create hatred against you, mark you, identify you, and also kick in the greed button. Like, and you can keep their stuff. Right. I mean, you're really, hitting them with a big cocktail of motivations, right? Hatred, opportunity, and also you'll be rewarded for it emotionally. Like, hey, you're our champion, you're our soldier.
Which is why they're
and you keep their farm.
Which is why they're pushing the whole victim mentality here in America. Yeah. Is that the whites are responsible for everything? They're guilty. It's they're decolonization. They've taken everyone's land, and it's yours to take back when the time comes, huh?
Yes, sir. I got to punch out now. Sorry.
Hey. God bless you. Thank you for the work you're doing. And thank you for taking some time to talk to Utah. We appreciate you. We appreciate what a great patriots you are, and we hope to have you back.
Thank you, Michael.
If y'all want to come down here, come on down. And I'm serious about that. I'll take you down.
We were actually,
I'm in.
We're in.
He's in now.
Okay, we'll talk about it. Let's talk about it in about 48 hours, and we'll start talking details.
Awesome.
All right?
God bless you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you for service.
God bless y'all.
Take care.
Bye-bye.
Well, folks, Tom, what closing thoughts do you have?
Well, I think he's a treasure trove of information. My goodness, that guy right there, having somebody that's dedicated their life to this, at least the last 20 plus years of, journalism, and not just journalism, but really, I mean, doing what journalists should do instead of taking some propaganda that's been given to them from their overlords and pushing it over with a narrative. And they know that's what it is. Journalism's dead in America. That guy right there, he's a hero. And I can't say enough about I wish we had more information that he has that's within his head to the American people, which is why we're trying to do what we're doing. And doing these shows, it really brings me to a sense of the awful situation that we're in right now, and how little that each person, if every person does just a little bit, how much that adds up, right? How little I can do, but if someone does what I do and what you do, and we start, what's the 2-3% of the engaged people to start a brush fire can change a nation. Look what happened during the riots of 20, whatever that was, and they were burning down cities, and look what the narrative was. Look what people started to follow and believe. All you got to do is get people, engaged in the work of finding what's happening. And guys, they're coming to our places here. I asked them, I wrote a note here, where are they staying and who is funding this? They're staying in our towns. They're staying in our cities. They're staying in farms. He said they were moving to a marijuana farm in Oklahoma that's run by the CCP. So that's why we can't have the Chinese owning ground in America, especially in Utah.
Well, especially again,
that's why it's a problem.
And when you take a step back and you read that AP article about China having more influence in the state of Utah than any other state, and you recognize we are under a Chinese invasion, to think that these people are not in our backyard is ignorance.
They're going to wake up one day, and it's going to be too late.
And when they say, one of the articles that just came out, we haven't have time to talk about, is this situation report: Iranian-backed hacker group infiltrates U.S. water system. An Iranian hacking group targeted the water system of a small Pennsylvania town over the Thanksgiving weekend in what may have been a test case targeting widely used individual control systems. This stuff is coming, and one of the reasons we started the show is when we were running against John Curtis and against some of these, established corrupt cocks and all these politicians here in Utah that are clearly establishment, the media protects them. And we realized, how can we wake the people up and bring these people down if the media is propping them up? Envision Utah. The media is part of, Envision Utah. And that's why we started this. we didn't start this as, hey, let's have a fun idea. Let's go, no, we started this because it's necessary, because we cannot rely on the mainstream media to talk about what Michael Yon has just talked about.
Or he just said information is the most important part of warfare currently. Always has been.
So, we get a lot of comments, especially on our Instagram page, about people when we post stuff like this. Well, what can I do? What do we do? How do we do something? The answer is get involved at the tip of the spear, which is information warfare. We're doing one little thing. What we can do is trying to interview, trying to shine the spotlight on Utah, exposing why people are saying this is one of the most corrupt states in the country. So, but the key is we're trying to get that out to you. But don't underestimate your importance in this fight.
Well, I would say, Jason, too, like you got to go to local level again. Do what you know. Start with your family. Start with your neighbors. Start with your friends. Start with your city council. Go to the meetings. Get involved in little things. And when you see something that's not right, let's do something about it. Let's fight for freedom.
And share. Whether I don't care if you share this or not, but whether you share this information or you're just talking to your, get educated and educate your neighbors, educate your family, educate your friends. If everybody would simply educate 2 or 3 people around them and wake 2 or 3 people up, share this Michael Yon video about what's actually happening, that this is an invasion, that while we've got Governor Cox here thinking, we're just a big welcoming state, putting on the front, disagree better, the big beta male that he is, trying to pretend like he's just a good, friendly guy. No, he is an enemy of the state. He is a traitor to this country. And we cannot rely on the media to fix this, or our politicians. They work for us. And it is our responsibility when they transgress, when they break the law of the Constitution, it is your responsibility to hold them accountable. Not the politicians. And the problem is nobody's holding these guys accountable. That's on you. That's on us.
Yeah, well, we get what we voted for. And
or in the case of Utah, where our elections are rated in the bottom of the country, we get what the system puts in place.
Yep.
So we have, and I'm going to tell you, not all of your reps are corrupted. I promise you that. But a lot of them are believe the lie that's passed down. And it is you putting pressure on your reps, telling them, hey, why are we using ranked choicing? Why are we using universal mail-in voting? Why do we use Eric? Why are we using Dominion? Why are we using every system that has been identified for fraud? Why do we use every single one of them in Utah?
Well, and you realize that when, and everyone says, well, what's Utah? Utah's only got 3.5 million population out of 350. Well, one state can set an example, right? And understanding what we know in this state being the birthplace for a lot of this stuff, that's why Utah matters. Because if they don't start it here, it's not going to start anywhere. Or at least it'll be push down the road a little bit, and we can try to stop it then.
Well, and we will.
But one thing real quick on COVID. Why are people now going back to sleep? COVID woke a lot of people up, in my opinion. And now they're going back to sleep saying, hey, you know what? The world's going back to normal, when in fact it couldn't be more on fire. It's just not out in front of your face. Yeah. Wake up.
Well, Tom, I appreciate you. And we appreciate our listeners. I appreciate you guys. Honestly, we have the greatest patriots in this state, and I mean it. We have the greatest patriots in this state. That is you guys. That is our those who are watching this. Thank you, and you matter. You and your fight matters. Dig in, figure out, And to me, what should you do? That's between you and God. You were sent here for this time. We were sent here for this time, and we were not sent to sit on the sidelines. So get right with God. Figure out what your role is in this fight, and let's give them hell. Let's freaking win. That's why we're here. So, anyways. You're the man. Thank you for being here. Thanks again to Michael Yon. I mean, this has been amazing. We will continue to try to get great people on to help you wake up your neighbors, because this is ground zero, like Tom said, and we will win. We're not sent to lose. We're going to win it. So anyways, God bless you guys. God bless America. God bless Utah.